is Ben. I'm going to try to take you on an adventure today, since I'm from Accenture, right? All right, so if you look up a little bit, I've been working since 2004, started out at Sogeti, French company, Sogeti Transitionnel, that transformed into Capgemini that you might know. Moved on to Bazum, then Devoteam, 4,000 people there, then Avanade, Microsoft and Accenture joint venture, and then moved on to Accenture where I am right now. I'm the cyber resilience lead for Accenture France. Cyber resilience, many different topics. We have ITDR, of course we're going to talk about that today. We have SOC teams for analysis, of course design and build. We have SOC teams also that do managed services for our customers, incident response, and also pen testing. Feel free to ask questions, guys, while we move on through the slides, because I usually ramble on, and I might not have time at the end, all right? So today we're going to talk about the practical approaches to improving your AD security posture. I know that you guys have been bombarded with tons of information for the past 2 days with great speakers and a lot of information. I'd like to take it back a notch, and as Sean was saying, AD has been created in 1999. That's a long time ago, and if we ask the people around here, when is the last time that you guys actually invested into improving AD? I'm talking about AD itself. I'm not talking about all the tools around AD. So today's session is a little bit about trying to fill out a use case with 3 different scenarios and try to see if it's really the best thing to just implement tons of new solutions on top of what we have rather than try to, improve what we currently have. Why are we still talking about Active Directory? So we're in 2025, soon, let's say, okay? And AD is still, well, the reason why everybody's here today. So it's not just AD, we're talking about Entra, but I'm mostly going to be talking about AD because just like Sean, I have a lot of gray hair, so I'm not that young anymore. If you take this little circle that I created and I presented, I think, last year already, AD is the center of everything, okay? When a user connects to a device, usually he's leveraging AD, right? And then when an identity, so the combo of the user and the device, is connecting to an application, whether it's well, we'll talk about on-prem first. On-prem application, file and print, once again, you're leveraging AD. When you're going out through networks, so either surfing on the web and you have, different pack files or something like that, or you're connecting remotely through VPN, well, technically, you're sort of leveraging Active Directory once again. And for my favorite part, when my clients used to talk about SaaS, we have SaaS applications, we don't really care about Active Directory that much. Well, technically, the SaaS applications do have to use an identity, and most of the time, well, federated identity are, well, through Active Directory or something that's coming from Active Directory, right? What about Office 365? Same thing, when we implement Office 365 at the time, we used to sync all the identities that we had on-prem to the cloud. So what I'm trying to say here is what would happen technically if Active Directory tomorrow was to go down? Would anything work in your whole enterprise? Yes? No? No. Okay, we all agree. All right, we had 2 days where a lot of people were talking about interesting things, and we had, Chinese, Japanese culture that was inside, a lot of interesting things to say. This is the last day, so I'm going to try to take it a little light. We're talking about important stuff, but I'm going to try to make it fun. For people who know me, I like movies a lot. I like rap a lot. So we're going to start about why is AD the cornerstone of your security posture, and we're going to start with Mac Miller. So Mac Miller says, everybody want a headline, I don't have nothing to say, except I'm coming back with a freshness. I don't know if I'm coming back with a freshness, but does anybody here know how many cyber attacks we have per day? Ballpark figure. No? Okay. 2,200 attacks per day, which brings it down to 1 attack every 39 seconds, which is 800,000 attacks per year. Okay, that's pretty big. Now, does anybody know here how many times AD was leveraged during those attacks?
2,200. 2,200, huh?
1 in 200, really?
2,200 times.
Oh, okay. My figure is a little bigger than that. It's 90% of the time. So that's like 720,000 if I'm making that. All right. Okay, now my good friend ODB would say, all business, baby, it's all about the money, right? So when they're trying to attack Active Directory, There is a reason why. So I'm not going to read all the figures here. You can see that it's pretty costly. 10 trillion for cybercrime, that's one thing. The most important figures that I'd like to point out is the average cost of a ransomware attack, because I do that with my teams a lot. I go for some IR. We're talking about 4 million, okay? That's one of them. The cost of data breach is also 4 million. Those are averages, okay? The most important part also is the other side that I thought that was very interesting is nearly half of the companies, they now have a policy to pay ransoms, okay? Which I'm not really that much into, but sometimes we don't have a choice. But the interesting figure is right beneath that, is that basically even when you decide to pay the ransom, so 8% of businesses that pay the ransom to the hackers receive all of their data in return. So even that doesn't seem like a good technique, okay? So if we're to move on, we were talking about just putting on new stuff all the time and not fixing what's going wrong. So I'm probably sure that if I look around here, I don't know which companies you guys work for, but antivirus, anti-spam, EDR, XDR, MDR, SIEM, SOAR, SASE, Zero Trust, PAM, MFA, all those things, right? You guys probably all implement that or pushing to implement that with our customers. But I have a little video because I'm trying to make this a little funny. This is what the attackers usually do. All right. They just decide to go and circumvent it, all right? So today's session is not that much about what we're supposed to slap on. It's more about, all the bad stuff that we see today. So I also like video games a lot, so this is Mortal Kombat. So we're trying to fight between slapping on solutions that are very useful, of course, if the company's mature enough to follow through and to make them work. But on the other side, we still have external-facing applications, service account frenzy. We've had sessions on the service accounts, USB keys that you can still put in computers, and you know what that is. Emails, you receive emails every day. Sometimes you go and I would say that you just click on a phishing link or whatever. I just did this morning actually on the Accenture side, which was pretty bad, so I got reported. No, seriously. It was about Christmas to New Year vacation, and I clicked on it, and of course it was coming from external, and it said you just got phished. So happens to everyone, and just one going through is enough, all right? Poorly trained users, end users, but also administrators. Wide access to the internet. All of you guys surf the internet, you click on links, you decide to go on stuff. When you're at home, your kids are using your computers, your company computers, which you shouldn't be doing. We have tired L2 and L3 operators, standard computers to perform administrative tasks. That's one big thing. I've been pushing for PAWS for years now, and Microsoft has also been putting them on the roadmap, I think 2 years ago, and they say it's a must-have, and we've had sessions about it. But a lot of companies are still using standard computers where they sign in, no protection, and they'll just, RDP into whatever and start working. Close to no governance. I would have loved to speak about governance. This is something that we do with many, many customers. Very poor governance on the customer side, so very little interaction between the teams. The ops teams, the CISO teams, the SOC teams, they don't discuss them, they don't exchange well, the information is not going through, and basically we also have a lot of problems there. So, if we were to take a step back on day one at HIP. Now for people who really know me, I'm a big fan of Tom Cruise, okay? Does anybody know who this guy is? So that's in Top Gun 1, okay? That's Viper, and that's Mike Metcalf. So the joke was we had Sean Metcalf yesterday who was presenting about hardening, okay? And Sean was going through very simple LLMNR, SMBV1, NTLM, NetBIOS, very simple things. Of course, on the IT side, you just configure a GPO, 2-minute configuration, right? And we can block all those things. But the true thing is what happens to business if we decide to do that without, trying out anything. Is business still gonna work in your org? No. Okay. Then we had Brian Desmond. So this is Mission Impossible 1. Brian Desmond, he talked about securing the connection chain through PAWS. As we're saying, if you're using a standard computer and just going on and performing an administrative task with it, probably not a good idea. We also had Simon Hodgkins, who talked about operational resilience. And this one was really important because it's where there's a link between IT, what we do in IT, and business. At the time, we used to do IT for IT and have a lot of fun. Right now, it's all about business, right? If you're trying to be resilient in your org, then basically you have to serve business and understand how business works. So this is why you have Maverick and Goose right there giving themselves a handshake. And the last one was Chris Inglis yesterday. He had a great session, I thought, where he was talking about the threat actors who basically know your org probably better than yourself, and they'll attack you when you're weak. So he was talking about the fact that SOC teams probably go a little slower on weekends or, on vacations or stuff like that. And that's basically, I think it was 72% of the time attacks happen during those periods of time where your defenses are down. So I put Heat, Michael Mann movie right there, because that's when they hit the truck, they hit on a timer, and they basically know the response time, and they know how things are going to happen. And the truth is, the attackers do know your org and your response time. So on that happy note, how does this journey start? Do you guys all probably know the precogs right here? Okay, Minority Report. And they're calling out for murder, right? They go, murder. A lot of interesting and smarter people than me created these. So I'm not gonna go through them. You got the advanced threat lifecycle, you got the ransomware lifecycle, you got an APT lifecycle, you got tons of stuff right there that's really interesting and that you can read right there. So a lot of people know about all this. You guys know about all this, but it's a lot of information, okay? Now the real question is, how do we take this information and use it in the real world? So the journey starts where, of course, your C-level execs just went through the previous slide. They had a demo presentation. Microsoft came in, talked about all these great things. And they now barge in, and they come to see you guys. And they ask you smart people about AD and how safe and confident we feel. So quick question, if I were to come in one of your orgs and ask about AD, do you guys all feel safe and confident? Are you 100% sure that everything is up to par? All right. We got some laughing. So on this one, the first version of it could be you look up and just like a famous actress called Mia K, you go, what is AD about, okay? The second version is we already know that we're secure. We're not fixing AD, but we're going through detection, okay? And we're looking at everything at real time. We have our SOC teams, we have EDR. So I say that in the realm, of the blind, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed king is king. So basically, do you really, really think, this was a question we had yesterday, that your SOC team with probably 3 people running the SOC team, 3 to 5 people with thousands of alerts per day, are gonna pinpoint the right alert or the right trigger when you have privilege escalation or something going on in your org, and are gonna pass it down to the AD team, and then you're gonna get a response? Do you really think that's gonna work out and you're gonna have time to do it? All right, I get no answer, but I'm pretty sure that that's a no-no. We audited a bank, and they have 24/7 SOC teams running, but the SOC teams actually don't have the privileges to make modifications in AD. So if they're hit during the weekend, the guy will see it. He then has to contact someone from the AD team by phone. That's gonna take at least a half hour, and before that guy can actually make modifications to AD, he has to contact a manager, okay, and get the manager in validation, and then make the modification. We're talking 2 hours. So if you see, I don't know, lateral movement, privilege escalation, do you really think that your org can wait 2 hours, and will your org be safe? No. The third one, of course, when they look at you guys and, what are you supposed to answer? You say, oh, I don't really know. Let's go for some consultants. This is where we come in, okay? We can't really see it, but we're the ChatGPT consultants, right? No matter what, we always use ChatGPT to get some fine answers. But the truth is, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna go for a technical and functional assessment, okay? So the first part and the most important part is not just running a tool to get some answers, right? You run the tool, you get some answers. You can run Purple Knight, you can run Oradad, which is a French one, you can run Pink Castle, you can run tons of different tools. They're gonna give you your IOEs, IOCs, and they're probably a ton right there, okay? Then what we'll do is we'll go through all your deliverables, high-level design, low-level design, procedures to try to understand what your ecosystem is like. But then on top of that, we go for interviews. So we don't just interview the AD guys, we go for AD, security, storage, workplace, security, SOC teams, and we try to get an idea of everything that's going on and understanding how your org works. We crunch those numbers down during 2 weeks. We put them in a great matrix, and then we work on different scenarios. And we come and present the final day a little bit about, this is where you stand today. These are basically the scenarios that you're supposed to go through. Because, of course, when you guys run PK, you get a whole list of things. But which ones are the priority? Which ones are going to impact business? Which ones are not? So we try to create a story with you guys to understand what's the fastest way to perform remediation, necessary remediation, and to get impacts as fast as possible. So the outcome of the assessment, you got my good friend Hannibal Smith right there, who usually says, I love it when a plan comes together, okay? So the plan is the usual, the functional version is the 1-3-1. You come with one problem, you come with 3 answers, and then you make one decision, right? So the problem is, I want to make my AE resilient and secure, all right? So the 3 potential answers that we gave, and this is a use case, so this is something that we've done for 3 different customers, okay? 3 of them were between 12,000 to 20,000 employees, so 15,000 to 25,000 computers, 2,500 servers to about 5,000, okay? So case 1 is the standard one. You go for an assessment, full IOE, IOC remediation, and some T0 hardening, okay? Because we're not just talking about Active Directory, right? We're talking about the whole connection chain to Active Directory. Also, where is Active Directory stored? Is it on the same, physical servers, or let's say virtual servers that are shared between tier 0 and tier 1? Let's just say we're talking about tier 0 hardening, not just Active Directory. The second case is moving to CTEM. I don't know how you pronounce that in English. Does anybody know what CTEM is in English? All right, so you pronounce it CTEM. All right, I usually do it in French. So CTEM, so continuous threat exposure, right? Case 3 is greenfield, start from scratch. And you guys are all going to look at me saying, okay, so you want to build a brand new AD and you want to do a whole migration, but how long is that actually going to take and how long is that actually going to cost, right? It's probably really complicated. Well, I'll break it down in the next few slides for you guys, okay? So let's take time for a new approach, okay? Some very smart people from a very smart company had this Mike Tyson thing with everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So I'm going to modernize that a little bit because Mike is now 58. He's going on a fight tomorrow, and I'm actually in for Mike. I don't know if you guys are following that tomorrow. He's going to beat up a YouTuber. Yeah, all right. We got some people who are happy. I hope it goes well. But anyway, so I'm coming back with some Connor. Basically, every time we go for an audit, all I see are easy targets, okay? So we all know that AD is the core of your identity infrastructure, right? And you can't build anything these days on something that's not robust. So we have to try to define how we're going to make this basic layer, which is Active Directory, the cornerstone of your security posture, how we're going to make this a little tougher and harder to penetrate. So once you analyze the attack surface and you identify attack paths, IOEs, IOCs, all that type of stuff, what are your next steps? So Connor says precision beats power and timing beats speed, okay? That's something that's very important for me. We have to define what we can do in the most effective way and the less amount of money, because it's always cost savings with most of the companies we work with. So we're trying to define something that's smart, actionable, and that we can do pretty fast. So case 1 is full remediation and evolution, okay? I don't have a laser on this little thingy, but that quadrant that you have in the back, so the center part of it is when we perform the audit, so technical, functional, and we break everything down, we come to that centerpiece where the evaluation is out of 20. And as you can see, this company was actually not that bad, and most of the companies we audit, they're pretty much the same. So between 9 and 10 out of 20 is what they get. But of course, we come in and we say like the full remediation package, right? It's going to be 1,500 man days, which is huge, right? That's only external man days. And then you add your internal man days, you add some PM over that. Basically, you're going for a huge amount. So the client usually says, okay, how can we break this down in different stages? And this is the important part. We want results and we want them fast, right? You just run PK, your score is crap. You're going to run PK again in the next month or 2, and you want the score to go up, basically. So what we do is we break it down in different stages, okay? We have stage 0, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 activities. We try to break those down into numbers, effort, and where they're going to get you on that little quadrant on the right. So this is something that C-levels usually appreciate because they know that they're going to pay a lot of money. but after a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, they know where they actually stand, okay? Some examples right here, so configuration hardening, password and protocols, administration, operations, data quality, governance, whatever, okay? And we have a little blah blah, but you guys can all get the slides and you'll be able to read them, okay? What we're trying to say is we're breaking them down in different streams and different stages for you to be able to harden your Active Directory and move on. Now, I'm pretty sure that everybody's wondering, what's the timeline? Does anybody have an idea what the timeline to perform all of these activities and to get to that greenest quadrant, so closest to perfection, would be? Does anybody have an idea around here? No, you can't because you already know. That was Killian, sorry. Does anybody have a remote idea? Are we talking about 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? 3 or 4 years, okay. All right, I'll take that. Full remediation and evolution. So just think about it. It's not a one-man job. We're a one-man army. So Accenture, we're about 800,000 employees. So if we're going to do this, we're not just going to send one person. We're going to send a whole team, okay? And this is the plan that we came up with that was validated with the client. If you look, we're close to 1 year, okay? In 1 year, but we are talking about 1,500 man days. So 1,500 man days would be 5 years, right? But because we're not a one-man team, we're doing things in parallel, that's how we bring the numbers down. So it's still 1,500 man days right there internally, meaning us, or externally, meaning us, the contractor. Internally, we still need the client because we can't do things without the client, right? And it's going to take about 500 days on the client side. But it's not also just the client, there's also external parties. We're talking about legacy applications that we don't know how to maintain, stuff like that. So we're going to have to access those third parties and ask them to come in. That's another 1,000 man days right there. So just to give you a budget estimation, and of course I did not put them in the slides because I'm not allowed to, 1,500 man days on the Accenture side. Let's just say our average daily rate is around $1,500, all right? So already right there, we're pretty close to 2 mil, just for us. 500 man days for you guys internally in your company. The average, so I'll talk about the average in France. I don't know about the average in the US. Average in France is about $500 per day for an internal person. So we're talking about a lot of money there, right? And the last one, 1,000 man days for external companies, third parties, they're probably billing 1,500 to 2,000 per day. All right, so that's another 2 mil. So basically performing this full remediation in a very short time frame is a program that's around 4 million euros, so $4.2 million. And this is what we usually do for a lot of companies. It's a lot of money, but we do it, and we do it in about 1 year, okay? Any questions? No. Think about one thing. On this one, we're just going through IOEs, IOCs, we're updating a little, upgrading the DCs, but we're not really securing tier 0, right? We're not implementing SASE, we're not implementing anything that's brand new. We're just going with fixing what's existing. And that's costing close to 4 mil right there. Case number 2, shift to CTEM. So this one is interesting because we're often thinking about IOEs, IOCs, but we're not thinking about the big picture. Is it really a bad thing to have a Windows 2000 computer that's on a segregated and isolated network and people using that, but like on a separate VLAN? Is it really a problem for you? I'm looking around. No, probably not. So is it really important to remediate that application to try to make it evolve and to slap on a Windows 2016 server or 2019 or whatever? I don't think so. So the approach with CTEM is to try to think about exposures, not CVEs, and try to understand what the business risk is. And this comes back to the conversation we had yesterday. IT is not IT for IT. IT is IT for business. We just want business continuity. That's all that we're here for. If the business goes down, that's an issue, okay? But if 70% of your infrastructure goes down, but your most important applications are still running and your business is still running, does it really matter that 70% of your IT is down? No? All right, I'm getting a no. Well, technically my answer is no, nobody cares. IT is not working, you probably can't access whatever file, but if business is 90% operational, we really don't care. Now, the important thing about CTEM, so I was talking about not always slapping on new things, right? This does not work for orgs that are not mature. because it relies strongly on collaboration, all right? We were talking about governance before. We know that most orgs have really bad governance, and this is definitely leveraging governance. We have to understand, what are the most important, your platinum applications. Does anybody know, do you guys even have like a list of your platinum applications here and what they rely on? Just looking, yeah, okay, so Joe from Accenture is saying yes. Aside from Accenture, I mean, every time I go and see a client, I'm like, what are your top applications? And sometimes they can give you at least 5 to 10 applications. And then we say, but what do they rely on? Which is the real question. And they don't know. So you have to come and sort of understand what they rely on. Probably network, maybe internet, maybe Active Directory. I would say most of the times yes. So we have to understand really what these applications are, how critical they are. When they go down, how much are you losing per day? I'll give you an example. A French pharmaceutical company with 120,000 users had 36 directories. When their AD goes down, it's 70 million per day. All right, and we're talking about a $4 million program right before. So what's 70 million per day versus 4 million to fix it, right? It's pretty much not that much. On the other hand, we also have a luxury company that we're working with, 20,000 users, so pretty small for Accenture. I think we were around 5 to 7 mil per day. That's what they lose when AD goes down, okay? So basically, these types of programs and what you're supposed to implement, they sell themselves if you talk to business. And this is the discussion I had with Kellyanne yesterday. It's not about scaring the people. It's about understanding how business works, what it relies on. And once you really get the key stakeholders to understand that these applications rely on this part of the infrastructure, then they will invest on that part of the infrastructure without a problem. All right, CTEM, so just saying that if you want to move, I'm going to skip this one because we got 15 minutes left. All right, if you want to shift from CTEM, so from vol management to CTEM, there's a difference. So the new things that we're talking about is more focusing on scoping, governance, as I was saying, and attack path analysis, okay? Accenture has a program to do this. What we usually do for CTEM, so for orgs that are mature enough, it's about a 1-month analysis and design phase that we do with a client, okay? The 1-month analysis usually runs for about 50K. Once again, I didn't put the numbers down, so you can write them down in your head, but around 50K is the design phase, okay? Once we agree on what we're gonna do and what we're gonna implement, we will implement it, and we usually do it in 3 months with all the use cases that go with it. 3 months with the Accenture tariff is about 150K right there, all right? So we're talking about 200K basically to implement CTEM in a smart and reasonable way. What we found interesting behind that, of course, it's not going to change your tier 0 security posture. We're only talking about IOEs, IOCs, and what to fix in a smart way. But what we saw when we implemented this for another customer is basically we reduced by more than 35% the number of IOEs and IOCs that we were supposed to fix. So if we come back to the first slide when we're talking about 1,500 man days, if you take 30% out of that, you're taking 500 man days off Accenture. You're also taking out 150 man days internally, and externally you're taking another 300, for the third parties. So basically, you're paying $200,000, right? But you're saving about 1.2 million to get to the same result, or to a result that will work operationally. Do we have any questions on this one? No, okay, everybody's very serious today. Last one, fun one, greenfield, start from scratch. And this is where you guys are gonna say, this is impossible, it's gonna take a very long time. How many of you people have gone through Active Directory migration? All right, now I see a lot of hands up. Oh, cool. How did it feel? How was it? Did you do it in 6 months? Did you do it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? 3 years. How many people? 4 people internally, but I mean the org size. 15,000 people, 3 years. Seems pretty reasonable. You used Quest at the time or binary tree? Quest. All right, QMM. Cool. So we're going to get back into that because most of the times when you guys are thinking consolidation programs or migration programs, you know that it's going to take 2 to 3 years, depending on the size of the org. But there are ways to accelerate that, and that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? So greenfield. Today, what we decided to do for this client was build something from scratch, latest technology, right? We're not trying to improve what you have. We've defined that what you have today is crap, basically. It's going to take way too long to remediate. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch, build something very new on the other side, slap on all the technology, all the governance, everything that you're supposed to do, best of everything, basically, and take what you had before and migrate it to this. Does anyone have an idea? So we're talking about 15,000 users in this org. How much time would this take? So we heard 15,000 users, 3 years. If you're to create something new and to migrate everyone, how long do you think that would take? 1.5 is what you said? All right, thank you, Brian. We'll see. So we do have a methodology at Accenture, and this was actually a partnership with Avanade. That's why you have the nice orange colors at the top. We go through the standard work streams: plan, analyze, design, build, test, deploy, run, okay? Then we break the work streams into different understreams, release planning, migration planning, apps, identity management, infrastructure, migration execution, all that type of stuff. The idea is to bring this to a very, very short time frame, right? We don't want to go to a 3-year program, 5-year program. We want to make this real short and sweet, okay? The slides will be available, and I'm not going to go in detail over every point, okay? So greenfield, what we usually do, and this is where the problem comes, is the orgs that we work with, they are usually spanned across many different countries. Don't speak the same language. The governance is, it's a group. So you have a group CIO, group CTO, group CISO, but for every different entity, you also have the local CIO, local CISO, local CTO, local teams. A total nightmare when you're trying to perform a migration. So what we usually do is we come in and we tell them that migrating Active Directory is not a technical project. And the truth is, it's not a technical project. You just, use a tool, QMM, binary tree, whatever. You make it work. It's pretty simple. You go through your pilots, you click, and it works. It's more of an org structure, governance, and program management. That's what it's all about. Defining, the migration waves and how you can do that. How are you going to provide support for the end users? So what we do at Accenture and Avanade is we create a migration factory, okay? We do it in one of our delivery centers. It could be near shore, offshore, or multiple span, okay? That migration factory works 7 days per week, okay? That's on one side. You can't talk to them. We can talk to them, but you can't talk to them. Then we have program management with local PMs that are spanned throughout the world. So if you define that you guys are mostly in NA, a little bit in Europe, maybe somewhere else, we'll put some PM teams right there to be able to talk to you on a daily basis, okay? That's important. And to come in with migration lots with you guys. So we take all of your users, but if we perform the migrations for you, we don't know who's doing what. So if I just take a list of users and migrate them during the day, maybe I'm gonna migrate some VIPs, but not their assistants. Maybe I'm gonna migrate some of, financial guys, but not the whole team. This is where we need somebody on the other side, and we work with them. So we together work on these migration lots, and we push them in a tool that we developed, okay? So this is a tool that's called Accelerate 365. This tool actually goes and, well, at the time, this was a program that we did in 2022, if I remember correctly. So the only tool that was out there was QMM at the time. So we integrated with QMM, and we did a lot of interesting things. So first of all, sending the emails to users saying, hey, by the way, you're gonna migrate on this date. That was 30 days before. Then 15 days before, you automatically receive an email saying, you're migrating this, whatever, here's what you're supposed to do. And then another 5 days before, and then 1 day before, and then next day when you've migrated. Because it's all about user, change management, basically. It's PM and change management. Once your users are happy and they understand what's going on, then your program will be working perfectly fine. So automatic emailing, pre-flight checks. When we're gonna perform the migration, so you use QMM, and you know that there's tons of technical stuff that you're supposed to check, right, before you can migrate someone. Well, we automated that. So basically, when we have the list of people that are supposed to migrate, the day prior, there's an automatic pre-flight check that's done. People come up in green or in red. Then we contact the local teams to either reassess, reevaluate if that user's okay to migrate or not. And if he's not, then we'll just migrate him another day. But this takes out all that waste of time that you probably went through when you did 3 years, right? Okay, agreed. 1 year. I'm just looking around. I was waiting for an applause or something. No? Yay! We did it in 1 year. So for this customer, you can see that we started with a new AD, design, build, fully separate, took about 3 months, okay? On the bottom, then we start with a user and computer migration. It usually takes about 1 month to build the migration factory, to define the migration process and the migration strategy that we go over with the client, okay? In parallel to that, we also have to talk about the server migration. That's really hard. Usually you guys don't know where your servers are at, what they do, their dependencies between the servers, where the data is, the service accounts that are used. So this is a very, very timely, stream. Basically, you can see that stream starts and goes all the way to the end. So that's a 1 year, and it was only for 2,500 servers, if I remember correctly. The last part is security. So while we're building the new AD, we're also doing the security thing. We're going through test plans, the target operating model, because that's something that's really important. Most orgs, they have an operating model that's probably 20 years old or something like that, that works country per country. Now the idea is to say you're a group and you have to work in a unique, everybody has to follow the same way of working. If everybody does things differently, then it's not gonna work out. So we defined the TOM, we implemented PAWS, we implemented PAM, so in this case I think we used CyberArk, but we also used tons of different technology. We went for zero trust. So basically this greenfield Active Directory went for everything, fully segregated tier 0, PAWS to secure the connection chain, PAM to secure tier 1, Labs to secure tier 2, a lot of process governance, reducing the number of people that were necessary throughout the world, 24/7 support, and we did all of this in 1 year. Does anybody have an idea? So we're not going to talk about the licenses. Does anyone have an idea? So we now know that it's a 1-year program. How much it costs to do? Ballpark figure. 2 million. So keep those numbers in consideration. We talked about 3 different scenarios, right? The first one, which seems to be the most obvious scenario for every company, is to say, I'm not gonna change everything I have because I've spent 20 years building it, right? And we're gonna go for remediation and everything, but we're not gonna go to the latest versions of whatever. We're just gonna remediate what we're supposed to do. 4 million, 1.5 years. Then the other one was, okay, we're evolved enough, we can go for CTEM. Okay, we just reduced 30%, we're not spending 4 mil, we're only spending something like a little less than 3. And in this case, migration from scratch, end to end, with full business support, was only 2 mil. Just trying to say that what seems obvious for you guys today is not always obvious. No one would ever go for migration thinking that that's the best solution. And it's a little bit like running away from what you've created. But sometimes what you've created has lived with Active Directory. We just said 25 years, a long time. Everything has changed, I don't know how many times. You haven't followed the evolution of anything. And it's sometimes time to call it quits. You just leave it as it is and you move on to something new. I got 5 minutes left. But before I go with the questions, out of these 3 scenarios, there is one very important thing. We started out, we said we go through an audit, right? That's a 1-month audit right there. And then we define these 3 high-level scenarios. Each scenario, as you can see, is more than 1 year to implement, which does mean that during that 1 year, you're still not that secure, right? So what do you think would be the first thing that you're supposed to do before you do these 3 scenarios? And it's the same thing. So remediating quick wins could be one. I'll help you guys out a little bit more. Yesterday we were talking about cybersecurity, operational resilience, and Simon pointed out something really important. He said he doesn't like to call it cyber resilience. He calls it cybersecurity, operational resilience. And there was one thing that was missing, he said, in operational resilience. Does anybody remember what Simon said yesterday? BCP, DRP? We know that these programs, they're gonna harden your AD different ways, but they will harden your AD and they will make you safe. But these programs take more than a year, okay? So number 1 step, you can't be like sitting ducks for a whole year. The most important thing that you need to do is have a correct way of backing up and restoring your Active Directory. So out of these 3 programs and these 3 use cases, in every case, the first thing that we implemented with a client was a backup solution, backup strategy, testing it, while we were implementing the use cases, okay? That's about it. I came back to the start? I guess, all right. back, if you guys can help me. Do we have any questions for this session? We got 2 questions. 1 question right there. Thanks, Sean.
In case 3, let's say you have a client that wants to go that way, but there's 1 or 2 holdouts. There's, we have an application that was written in God knows what programming language by a dude named Jerry in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
We're beholden to have some older pieces of architecture for that.
Yep.
What do you guys do in that scenario?
All right, so what you're saying is we can still migrate the application, though. All you're saying is that it's on old Windows versions or something like that, is what you're saying?
It has to be. It would still have to be supported.
Okay. Well, as I was giving an example earlier on, sometimes things can't be remediated, right? And this has happened in many client situations where we look at the vendor solution, company's gone, nobody supports the application, but they still need it on a day-to-day basis. So either you go and you try to make the evolution, so yourself, you go through tests and things like that, most of the time it doesn't work, okay? Or you try to identify the population that uses this, and you try to isolate it. This is what I was talking about before. Technically, we have some clients where, all right, they're still running some applications on some Windows 2000 servers, but for a subset of users, yeah, we know we have that crappy server somewhere, but we're gonna put it in a specific VLAN, we're gonna isolate it, we're gonna monitor anything that's gonna try to go to it, but we can't make it evolve, so we're gonna keep it that way. The wrong way of seeing things would be to say, I wanna keep that old Active Directory, and I'm gonna keep that legacy application until it dies. If any of you have gone through proper migration, you know that doing that is a total failure, because what's gonna happen is you'll never decommission those servers. You're gonna keep that old forest forever. You're gonna have a trust with your new forest for everything to work, and you're gonna have that for the next 10 years. So that's the only thing you're not allowed to do. So either you try to remediate it yourself, or you move it forward as it is, but you secure it and you monitor it.
Next question.
Okay, so my question is concerning the K3 with Greenfield. On your slide, you are talking about the design phase and the testing with POPAM phase that are starting in the same time.
No. Sorry, go for it.
No, go.
All right, so no. The design phase starts in, and you have to think about 2 different streams. There was the design phase and there was a security stream, okay? I would say that normally when we do design, we implement security, by design. That's one of them. But for the pause and PAM, this was something that had to be done in correlation with AD starting a little later, okay? So not immediately from the start, probably a month and a half later, we have the security teams run in and start designing the pause and everything, okay?
We have time for one more question.
Kellyanne.
Haley in the ringer.
Thanks, Ben. Across either of the 3 methods or models, are you able to calculate or ROI elimination of technical debt along the way and quantify that into dollars?
So, yes. This is something that we do usually. We try to understand, your TCO, things like that. And we try to define, so this is in the high-level estimations that we give after the 1-month analysis. Of course, we're not gonna drill down and give you an exact number, right? But we use our assets, we use what we see and what we've done for other customers, other clients, and basically we try to match them with your numbers. So in the evaluation that will help you make the decision, there is, of course, the TCO, ROI, everything that goes with it. It's not just the total amount of money and the total timeline, right? It's everything together. But yeah, that's what helps you make the decision, indeed.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Ben.
There was a last slide, but you guys will get the deck with my email and also my LinkedIn if you wanted to reach. And thanks a lot for the session. Have a great one.